the best sew and weave techniques that you should know. Hey there, beauties. Welcome back to our channel. Today, I have an amazing video for you where I'll be showing you the best sew and weave techniques that you need to know to slay every single time. So, if you're ready to secure your weave game and look flawless for any occasion, then keep watching. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more fabulous hair tips and tricks like this one. Hey beauties, it's me again, Kayla, your favorite beauty blogger, and we are here, of course, with Private Label. Let's get into some of the best techniques for installing sew-ins. Let's get started, all about sew-ins. So, over time, sew-ins have quickly evolved into the most dynamic, versatile method of installing hair extensions. This installation method has helped women effortlessly enhance and transform their looks. So what exactly are sew-ins? Sew-ins include adding hair extensions by the hair weft or the tracks using a needle and a thread. Once that you've decided that sew-ins are the best installation method for you, it is important to consider what type of hair you will have installed. Preparing in every way is essential to the success and the duration of sew-ins. So today, what you will learn about sew-ins. We're going to talk about sew-in supplies. We're going to talk about the hair preparation needed to install sew-ins. We're going to discuss different stitching techniques. We're going to discuss full sew-in techniques. We're going to talk about the vixen sew-in technique, partial sew-in technique, invisible part sew-in technique. Trust me, after this, you will never have a terrible install using any one of these techniques. Everybody is talking about securing the bag, but girl, what about securing your weave or the sew-in? I am all here for paying for quality bundles like those that we provide at Private Label Extensions. But I always make sure that I wear them correctly to get the most out of them and to give a flawless look. Trust me, it will be best if you didn't have tracks showing, your leave out not blending in well with your bundles, or even a sew-in that looks like it's levitating off of your head because the foundation is just no good. Remember, before you think about going to secure that bag, make sure your sew-in is on point. With the flawless install, you'll have the deal sealed as soon as you enter any room. There's no need for you to look less than perfect for every occasion. Here's what you'll need to complete your sew-in from start to finish. Sew-in supplies. First, we're gonna need a rat tail comb to create neat and precise parts. You're also going to need a wide tooth comb to comb the hair neatly. You're going to need oil for the scalp, black nylon thread, rubber bands, hook needles, duckbill clips, a weaving net, a wig cap, depending on the technique that you're using, a flat iron, 3 bundles of hair, shampooed, deep conditioned, and air dried. You're also going to need maybe 1 pack of synthetic braiding hair. That's optional. Make sure that you prepare your hair before your weave install. You should never install a sew-in without prepping your hair first and choosing the best sew-in technique for your ultimate installation. Just think about it. Your hair is going to be under an install for an extended period of time. Could you imagine the smell or the damage your hair and scalp will have if you don't properly prepare for it? Shampoo and condition your hair with a product that has an amazing nutrient-rich oil such as argan oil. I'm absolutely in love with the organics line of hair care products because the company has a variety of products perfect for your specific hair type and needs. I also love Kim Kimball's hairline because it's ideal for relaxed hair as well as natural textures. To get started, you want to shampoo and condition your hair. Then you want to dry your tresses. The technique that you use to dry your hair is totally up to you. But if you allow your hair to air dry or you sit under a hair dryer, make sure that you add moisture back into your hair. And always remember to use a heat protectant before you blow dry your hair. A great moisturizer is vital to prevent dryness while you're rocking your sew-in. Pay particular attention to your ends as well as your edges as you apply your moisturizer. Don't go overboard with the product because a little bit definitely goes a long way. Let's discuss the sew-in stitch technique. If you want your sew-in installed to last, using the right stitch techniques is essential. Choose either one of these stitch types that we're going to talk about today to secure your wefts to your braids or your net and to prevent sliding. First, the overcast stitch technique. This requires you to take your needle through the weft and pull it through. This stitch is the easiest and the most used method for sew-ins. You want to make sure that you pull the thread tight enough to ensure that you don't have slack. You can also use the double lock stitch technique. This is the same as as the overcast stitch, but you will loop the thread twice this time. The double lock stitch is best for maximum security of your install, especially if you want to keep it in for a few months. You can also opt for the lock stitch method, which is the same as the overcast stitch. When you pull the thread through the weft, you will take your needle and stick it through the loop. Again, pull snug to prevent slipping of the tracks. Let's talk about a full sewing technique. If you want your sewing to last longer and you want to be the envy of everybody in your office, you have to make sure that your braids are on point. Now, they don't need to be as fly as Allen Iverson's braids, but almost. A good foundation will make sure your sewing is flawless. So, how do we actually sew in a weave? You're gonna start by leaving out a small section of hair around the sides and the back to blend for a more natural look. We're gonna create 2 perimeter braids, each one going to the temple of your head. You're gonna braid them both towards the back of your head. Next, create 1 braid. Make sure to leave some hair out. We're gonna create 2 perimeter braids. Braid them both towards the back of your head. Next, create 1 braid that will go across the back nape area of the head. This braid is gonna be your anchor braid for your back wefts. Then we're gonna separate the hair into 3 sections and slide down about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch before you start your braid. Braiding this way is gonna help you reduce tension on your scalp as well as your edges. Braid the rest of your hair and keep the braids small and neat. Small braids are going to provide you with a flat and smooth look when your sewing is finished, and it's going to help it last so much longer. These braids, they should be braided straight to the back. You can add synthetic hair to each braid. This is going to help your braids last a bit longer as well. When it comes to sewing into the braids, you want to take the braids and you want to start to sew them down by placing your remaining loose braids in between other cornrows to ensure that you get a flat base. Make sure you knot your thread a couple of times to ensure that it's super secure. You're gonna take your threaded needle underneath all 3 braids. Loop your thread twice and pull straight through. Next, create a knot and continue the stitch process until you secure the entire braid. You're gonna continue the process above for every single braid. Then we're gonna apply oil to the scalp, but do not saturate the hair or the scalp in oil. Remember, a little product goes a super long way. Take the braids and start to sew them down. You're gonna place your remaining loose braids between your cornrows to ensure that you have a super flat base. Make sure you knot your thread a couple of times to ensure that it's super secure. Now, when we're installing a closure, if you're installing a closure, you want to align the closure with the part in the head. Leave about 1/4 of an inch of the closure in the front of the hairline. You're going to put your first stitch through the closure, and then you're going to stitch into the braid and through the closure, and then you're going to pull the thread through. Next, loop it through the thread, and then you're going to bring it to the edge of the closure to secure a knot. You might need help with the other side. Have someone hold the closure down as you secure the opposite side. Then repeat the same process as before. Make sure you don't pull too tight because you want to protect your edges. You're going to stitch the closure along the perimeter braid. Don't leave large gaps between the stitches because you don't want any bunching. Stitch the closure down going towards the back of the head. Always stitch the sides first and then you proceed to the back. Once your closure is installed, you're going to begin sewing your bundles by doubling the wefts. You're going to start at the back of the head. You're going to stick the needle through the wefts, through the bottom braid, and then through the weft again. You're gonna complete between 5 to 7 stitches, and then you're gonna create a knot. You don't have to go through the weft with every single stitch, maybe every 3 to 5 stitches. Make sure you go through the weft when you get to the edge of the head, and then knot the thread for maximum durability. Once our bundles are installed, we're gonna part the closure. In the part, you wanna anchor the front of the closure to the braid. Use single wefts at the top of the head to reduce bulk. Using a net is gonna help maintain your braided style for a longer period of time. It also provides fullness in areas where you may suffer from alopecia or any hair thinning. The net also prevents damage to your natural hair, and it helps those with shorter hair get an amazing install. In addition, you can use a net to reinforce your foundation if you have significant gaps between your braids, if you have shorter hair, or if you have thinner hair. Now, let's get into the vixen sewing. A vixen sewing consists of tracts of hair that are sewn into 4 equal sectional parts of the head. This sew and weave technique is perfect for maximum versatility. It allows you to pull your hair up into a high ponytail and many other different styles. Please refer back to the section where we spoke about preparing your hair for a sew-in install. You want to make sure that you protect your natural hair to prevent any damage. Leave some hair out for the perimeter, as well as to cover your tracks. You're going to find the middle of the head and part down the middle. Leave about 2 centimeters, which is about half of a fingertip, on the outside of each section. Braiding for a vixen sew-in. You want to braid the center hair that's left out into a big braid so that it is not braided in with any of your future base braids. Now that we have the leave out sectioned off, you're going to part the hair from ear to ear and leave about 2 centimeters on the outside of each part. Braid the center hair leave out into a big braid so that it's not braided in. Next, you're going to begin braiding each section into a beehive braid pattern, which is a small circular singular braid. You're going to keep the parts and the sections super small and tight to ensure that you have a flat and flawless finish. Braid all 4 sections in the beehive braid. You're going to use needle and a nylon thread to secure the loose end of each braid by placing the braid in between the parts to ensure your foundation is nice and flat. Loop the thread and tie a knot twice to ensure that it's super secure. At this point, you can use your weaving net if you choose to, and you're going to secure the net to the perimeter of each braided section. It would be best if you had 4 beehive net covered sections at this point. Now, starting in the back with your first section, you're going to sew your track under the bottom braid. Then continue sewing your tracks one on top of the other until you finish with that section. Repeat this process for all the other 3 sections. Now let's talk about the partial sew-in. A partial sew-in is perfect if you want flexibility in styling your hair differently. Most will consider it similar to a quick weave. You can get a lot of wear out of a partial sew-in. A partial sew-in, it allows your hair extensions to blend more naturally with your natural hair. Updos are literally the ultimate hairstyle to rock when you get a partial sew-in. Again, refer back to the section where we spoke about preparing your hair before you begin your install. You want to make sure that you protect your natural hair to prevent any damage. We're going to leave some hair out around the entire perimeter of your head. We're going to braid this hair so that it doesn't get mixed in with your foundation braids. Also, braid a section of the hair at the crown of your head because this will be your hair left out after you've completed your partial sew-in. Then braid the back of your nape area. This braid will make the back braid anchor your sew-in firmly. Now, take the ends of your braids and lay them in between your parts. You're going to sew each braid in the same exact way that you would for a full sew-in. Once you finish braiding the rest of your hair in, either a beehive pattern or a straight back pattern, prepare your weaving net. While keeping your net flat and neat, you're going to cover the entire head with the net. Now let's go over exactly how to sew in the weave. So while keeping your net flat and neat, you're going to cover the entire head with the net. Begin sewing your net on the side that you want your deep part to be on. Stitch the top of the net, next will be the sides, and then the back is last. You're sewing your net to the braided foundation, ensuring you avoid braiding to your perimeter and the center braids because remember, this is going to be your leave out and it is essential to have an amazing partial sew-in. At the back, you're going to stretch your weaving net first and then sew the net to your braids to ensure there is no buckling. Next, trim the excess net off. Now you can begin sewing in your bundles until you get to the top using the fold over method. Unbraid all of your leave out braids. You're going to style into your desired look and you now have a beautiful partial sew-in. Now let's talk about how to do an invisible part sew-in. An invisible part sewing gives you a flawless look without having any noticeable tracks to distract from your look. Refer back to our section where we discuss how to prepare your natural hair before an install. You want to make sure that you protect your natural hair, most importantly, from any damage. Braid your hair in a braid pattern where your hair has a deep side part. Begin your braid on each side of the semicircle pattern. You're going to secure the braids with the rubber band in the back, and then you're going to sew them in between apart. Take your wig cap and stretch it over the entire head. The cap should cover your perimeter braids. Make sure the cap extends past your perimeter braids. Get your wig cap ready. Begin sewing your wig cap to the perimeter braid. You're going to feed your needle through the cap, under the perimeter braid, and then back through the cap. Utilize the double lock stitch to secure the wig cap to the braid. Continue braiding around the perimeter braid until you return to the front of the hairline. Use the double lock stitch to secure the wig cap with the braid. We're going to continue sewing around the perimeter braid until you return back to the front of the hairline. Now, Start sewing the wig cap around the base area of your invisible braid. Continue sewing until your last stitch meets up with your perimeter braid. Use a double lock stitch twice to secure the wig cap around the invisible part. You're gonna cut the thread off, and then you're gonna cut the wig cap along the invisible part. Make sure you leave a little of the wig cap so you don't snip any of your double lock stitches. Next, trim off the rest of the wig cap around your hairline. Measure the wefts to get the proper length so they meet at the beginning of the perimeter braid. Make sure to extend just a little bit over to ensure that your length is just right. Cut your extensions now and measure your track at the beginning of the base. You're gonna take the tracks and you're gonna wrap them around the base of your invisible part. Make sure you overextend here as well. Now it's time to cut your extensions. Now, you're gonna sew in your first measured track by placing your track in line with the perimeter braid. Your track should lay smoothly in line with your braid, and then the weft should face the back of your head. Go through the braid underneath your extension and pull the needle through the weft. Make sure you use your double lock stitch method while you sew in the entire track. Secure your ends of your wefts with the double lock stitch twice. Trim off any excess weft when you have completed the top of your head. You're gonna repeat this method for the invisible part section. Now, for the rest of the head, you can sew in your tracks by using the fold over method to eliminate cutting your wefts. To fill in the area left near your part, you're gonna take your track and you're gonna measure from end of your invisible part braid and just before the weft along the invisible part. Cut that weft and pull your needle through the weft. Use a double lock stitch method and cut any excess thread without cutting the double thread stitch on the other end of the weft. You're gonna place the track on the braid. You're gonna take the needle through the braid and the weft. Make sure to create your knot to make sure that the weft is super duper secure. You're gonna repeat this step one more time, using a single loop to attach the weft to the braid for the rest of the weft. At the end of the weft, you're gonna double lock stitch twice to ensure the weft is secure on both ends. Then you can cut the thread. Continue with this process to cover the entire area, finishing up the invisible part sewing. When we're finishing up the invisible part sewing, the last part is to create your closure for the invisible part. You're gonna take your hair extensions and you're gonna measure the space that's left at the top of the head. Then you're gonna take the needle and thread, go through the weft, and create your double lock stitch. Now, create a second stitch. You're gonna roll your extensions until it forms a circle. Roll it once to make a single knot, roll it again, make a knot, and continue until you see the entire hair track entirely. Make sure that you pull your needle through all the wefts as you stitch. At the end, you're gonna pull the thread through the weft and then underneath all of the wefts. You're gonna secure the wefts with 2 double lock stitches. Next, pull the thread tight and cut the thread. At this point, you can flip the closure over and spread the hair evenly around it. Use your flat iron to flatten the hair. Now, take the threaded needle through a few loops of the closure. Pull the thread through a knot with a double lock stitch. At this point, you have your needle and your thread connected to your closure. Next, you're gonna grab a rubber band and you're gonna secure the loose hair. Next, take the side of the closure with the loose string and place it in the exposed area at the crown of your head. Take the needle through a piece of the track that's previously sewn along the invisible part. Pull it through and stitch it down. You're gonna pull on the thread to get a snug feeling, but you don't want it too tight. Continue the same process around the entire closure. Your last step is gonna be to cut the thread to finish off your invisible part sewing. Let's talk about the favorite sewing technique. Today, I have explained how to install your favorite hair extensions with some great sewing techniques. Which one was your favorite sewing technique that we spoke about today? Please let us know down below in the comments. And I thank you all so much for tuning in today, and I cannot wait to see you guys in the next video. Peace out.